Welcome back. We have an awesome episode for you guys today. It's Black History Month 2022. And so we brought on the GOAT herself, Kylene from Black Diabetic Girl. We chop it up for about an hour, ranging from everything from how she got her start, from her diagnosis story to what she would tell current and future Black diabetic girls. It is an episode that you can't miss. And there's even a little bit of inside information before Eritrea came to Diabetics Doing Things, a conversation that she had with Kylene. So you can get a little bit of the background as well. We know Eritrea loves the tea.
I like to spill it, but I like the Black Diabetic Girl effect, like how Kylene has impacted not just the space in so many different ways. So yeah.
And we've been big advocates for sharing your story and for having that vulnerability exchange with people. And there could not be a better example for us to find than Kylene. So be sure to check her out on Black Diabetic Girl on Instagram, blackdiabeticgirl.com, and be sure to support those initiatives and get in touch with her as well if you have questions about this podcast. So thank you, Kylene, for coming on, and enjoy this episode with Kylene from Black Diabetic Girl. Welcome back to another episode of Diabetics Doing Things. We are telling the amazing stories of people with diabetes from all over the world. Our very special guest today, you know her on social media as Black Diabetic Girl, but we know her as Kylene. Kylene, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. It's great to be here.
This is actually our first recording in 2022. So we have been plotting and building, and we figured we better start off on the right foot and have you as our first recorded guest in 2022.
Hello. I like it.
Black History Month, girl. We had to bring you. I was like, okay, listen, we're not trying. I'm going to start it correct. We haven't recorded with anybody else. So we're going to warm up with Kai.
Let's do it then. That means that everybody else that's listening, if you come behind me, you have to be better than me. So good luck.
I sound like the ceiling is like we just raised it. You know what I mean? And that's good. We got to continue to improve all the time. So it's big. So just like we always kind of start, and we have been friends in the diabetes community for years now, and I think that that's going to come through this interview. But just to get started on the diagnosis piece, and I know that you have a very specific and very relevant diagnosis story because there's been some misdiagnosis in your life, like many people with diabetes. So would love to hear about your various diagnosis stories.
Sure. So those that don't know, I was actually diagnosed as type 2 when I initially went into urgent care. I went thinking that I had a urinary tract infection because I was going to the bathroom all of the time. And those that like to self-diagnose, how you walk in and you tell them, what's wrong with you. That was me. I walked in like, this is what's wrong with me. Let's get it together. And the doctor came back and he was like, no, so you don't have a urinary tract infection, but you are diabetic. He didn't get into like the specifics of what type right away. He was just like, oh, you're overweight. And, this happens in Black families often. And I had my dad with me. So, he was like, my dad was like, oh, I'm type 2, I'm diabetic, whatever. And so the gentleman just went with that. And I was like, okay, and I didn't know any better. So it was okay, well, what we got to do to fix it? What do I do? And so it did not get better. It got worse. I ended up in the hospital several times after that, passed out at work, at home, went into DKA, was diagnosed with pancreatitis, but still no correct diagnosis, right? I go to, not the urgent care. Let me state that the urgent care is not where I work. I ended up going to the hospital where I work, and I'm in the unit and I'm talking to one of the doctors that I know. And I'm like, yo, something is really off. Like my asthma is crazy, but I don't come to the hospital this much. Like, Jesus. And so we got to talking and she was asking me how the visit went. I played it out to her. And she said, well, I'm going to ask them to do some other tests because there are multiple types of diabetes. And I was taken back like, oh, what? And so long and behold, the on-call doctor was like, so you're type 1? And I was like, well, what is that? Explain to me, please. And it's been a lot better since then. But, it was just my issue with the urgent care provider was you literally just ran with the fact that I'm an adult I'm a Black woman and yours, you know, and I'm overweight. So this is how we diagnose people. That doesn't work. Like you didn't ask nothing. You know, you didn't ask, do I have does my family have a history of diabetes? Like you just ran with it. And also you didn't give me anything to work with. You know, you just sent me out there. And the endocrinologist at the time that I had wasn't any help. I'm like, well, I'm doing everything that you said to do. You know, you said workout. You said to change my diet. You said to do this and do that. And I did those things. However, I was still feeling like trash. I still was getting sick and, you know, nothing was changing. I'm like, well, what y'all want from me? Because something wrong. And so, yeah, but we got the diagnosis.
Well, you bring up like a couple of really good points. Like at face value, when doctors and practitioners look at patients at face value, there are things that can be missed, and especially with a diagnosis of type 2 versus type 1. Like there's so many nuances. Like it has the same name, diabetes, but as we know, those of us who have lived with it for years and have been active in the community, like there's various different elements to each of them. And you know, I think like back in the day, the old people were like, well, do you have the good kind or the bad kind? I was like, well, tell me which one is which, because I don't know. But I think, you know, one of the things that I would encourage, I don't know, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already have had your diagnosis, like, you know, corrected and whatnot. But if you get diagnosed with diabetes and they don't do an antibody test, do the antibody test just in case. So yeah. Well, from there though, like, you know, what was that, once you got the information that you needed, did you feel like you actually like were managing it pretty well, and like felt like that you know, once you had all the right information and the right tools, that you were able to get back on track?
I do. It was a battle because then I was diagnosed with pancreatitis. They put me on a medicine that in the intro or whatever, of course, it says like not for people with type 1 diabetes. But because they didn't diagnose me as such, you know, and I'm trying to figure out how to do something, my doctor, the endo at the time, was like, oh, you know, we'll try this. Well, that landed me with pancreatitis. So that battle of trying to get out of like all of those flare-ups and still manage correctly, I'll say like that first year was kind of a battle, you know, just trying to get my body back out of having flare-ups and those sorts of things. But after that, I feel like that was like my honeymoon stage, right? Like after that, then life was good, you know. We were moving and shaking, you know. We lived with a nice A1C, you know. I got a good endocrinologist, and life was great. And yeah, you know, I don't have any outside of pancreatitis. I have 0 complications, you know. So,
talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned you have a great endocrinologist now. What was that process like? And did you have to fire a doctor? Did you go on a search? You know, what was that like? Because I think that's a really challenging journey to go on as a patient, especially for the first time, like really advocating for yourself to say, hey, I need different levels of care.
So those that don't know, I work in healthcare. So my journey is a lot different from a lot of people. I work with providers, right? So at the time, my original endo was not a doctor at our practice. And so Black lady at that, I need everyone to know, because people always say, go to a Black provider. Well, it was the Black provider that failed me. And my urgent care provider was a Black man, and he failed me initially, right? So I did fire her, you know, because she just wasn't listening. I'm like, listen, ma'am, I'm doing everything with everything. So fired her. My PCP was the one who, you know, I was telling her, because we have a very good relationship. And I was like, so listen, I need an endocrinologist, unless you want to keep doing it. And I know you don't want to, so put me on. And we went down the list, and she was like, I know you personally. I know who will be a good fit, who won't be a good fit. And so she said, this specific provider. And I was like, oh, I know him. I work like we work professionally. And so I called his office. He was not taking new patients at the time. And I was like, oh, no. So I had to pull a little, I work here. what's up? And we've been good. He's literally been my endo since 2011. And I always tell him he can't go anywhere. And if he ever retires, that I'm going with him if he moves back home. Like, we are stuck like glued. There's no, I'm sorry for his wife and his kids, but he can't go. I'm coming with him. And I'm sure his other patients feel the same way. But I stand by firing your doctor if they are not giving you what you need. If you are spinning your wheels, it's okay. The process can absolutely be frustrating, but once you get that right fit, the reward is so much. Like, that journey will be worth it, and people have to remember that just because one doctor works for you doesn't mean that they'll work for somebody else. So be okay with it. Sometimes you gotta let them go. They work for you.
I love that, because, and I think this is really important. We haven't talked about this a ton on the podcast in the past, because I think it requires a little bit of a level of experience too. And honestly, like I didn't feel like an adult until I had to decide to change practitioners. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, I'm really not getting what I need here. And I need an endocrinologist. That I was very similar to you. I had a great relationship with my PCP, with my primary care physician. She'd been friends with our family for many years. It was great, but her practice was changing. And she's like, look, Rob, you really need an endocrinologist. We can't just do this way anymore. And I was like, okay. So went on that journey, but I think it's really interesting. And this never, I don't know. It's a complicated concept, because when you look at the sports world, like, you can say, okay, well, there are good coaches or there are bad coaches, or good players or bad players, because you have a way to measure them. But when you're in a career, and for me, when I was an athlete in college, I just assumed my coach knew what he was doing. My first job, I assumed my boss had it all laid out and they knew what they were doing. Most of us are just trying to figure it out, and not all of us are the best in the business, or not all of us will be right for every patient. So I think that's it takes a lot of maturity, and it really takes a lot of courage to dig your feet in and say, you know what, I need more from my care team, and I'm going to go look for that. And it can be scary, but you're spending your money, you're paying those insurance premiums, and you're, advocating for your own care. And that starts with a relationship with your endo.
For sure. I tell people that all the time, like, listen, if that don't work for you, if you've gone into that appointment with the open mind and you're being honest and you're not receiving that back, go ahead and find you a new doctor.
Maybe I needed to hear this today, guys.
Yeah. We were talking offline a little bit about Eritrea. I had an endo appointment today, and maybe this is our answer to her challenge.
It's the universe. So I don't know, I don't know. A lot of things that you're saying are really resonating with me, of just like, if they're not serving the needs, or just almost even dismissing them, then maybe it's time to look for someone else, even if you have been there for a while, because that's totally, doable. Sometimes you can outgrow your endocrinologist. That's possible. So yeah, maybe if somebody else needed to hear it like I did today, go get a new endo, buddy.
Get you a new one, now make sure, some of y'all might need to talk to your insurance company first, but do your due diligence is what I always tell people. Do your due diligence. Do it.
100%.
Absolutely.
So you got your new endo in 2011. Things are starting to go well for you. I've heard you say before, when you started Black Diabetic Girl, you were looking for other people like you, and you were having a hard time finding other Black diabetic girls. So kind of walk me through the creation of your channels and your platform and your brand, and where that came from, and what that opened you up to in the world of diabetes.
So this is going to sound really crazy. It came from, the page became a page because I didn't want y'all nosy people on my personal page. So, because my personal page is private, right? And I was like, oh, I don't want these people in my business for real. So I got to make a new page, because I tried it, right? I made my page public, and I was like, I don't know how to, I don't like this. I don't like this. So I made a new page, and I was like, okay, we're gonna not use that, because I don't want these people, it was one of those, I don't want the people in my business, right? So I made that, and then I was like, well, how am I find people? I want some, I'm very I'm not a around the bush type of person. I'm like straightforward. And so it was, okay, well, what I'm looking for people, and if I want people to find me, and I know what type of people I want to find me, let's keep it real. And so then I was like, oh, well, we could do something with Kai. And I was like, nah. And so Black Diabetic Girl, I was like, well, that's what I am. So here we are, right? Sorry, Leslie, I know you wanted that name. However, I got it. And so that was how the page started. And it was like instantly people started to find me quicker than I was finding them. I have a really good girlfriend that works in PR, and she was like, listen, use these hashtags, and this is how you'll find people. People will find you. And I was like, girl, whatever. But she didn't lie, because they were finding me, and then I started finding them. And so that was the birth of Black Diabetic Girl. The brand of Black Diabetic Girl kind of fell into my lap. I just wanted friends. I really just wanted friends, right? Like I solely just wanted friends to talk about diabetes with. My cousin is type 1, but we are polar opposites. He's very quiet about it. Like, you don't know, like, people don't know, unless you're in our family or you just so happen to see his Dexcom, you don't know. So I'm like, I don't want to talk to him. Plus, we are very competitive, and me and him like to debate. So I'm like, this is not what I want. And so I found friends. Like, I was like, yes, okay. The brand part fell into my lap. That literally fell into my lap. Who everyone sees me today as is exactly who I am. Like, I am very outspoken across all boards, at work, everywhere, right? Like, I am very outspoken. I say what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling, respectfully, and we're gonna keep it moving. And so the same girlfriend was like, listen, it's a market for this. And I'm like, bye, girl, like, this your job. So I know that friend, stop. And she was like, no, I'm serious. And I was like, you know me, yo, no, I'm good. Like, I make really good money at my job. I don't need nothing else, right? So that was my whole mindset. Like, I'm good, sis. I'm good. And she's like, no. But I guess her guess was right. She was right. But it was very much like, I was very much like, no, you can do whatever. Her and my sister, I can tell you, and I tell everyone, if it was not for Nikki and Trisha, there would be none of everything else that Black Diabetic Girl does. There would be no Black Diabetic Girl. There would be no Dope Diabetic Girl. There would have been no podcast, nothing, right? And my homegirl was just like, listen, you need to run with it. And so we made a t-shirt, and everybody wanted it. And I was like, oh, y'all really want this? And they were like, yeah. So I did. Those who have been like from the beginning know that, like, there was no website. I was told, like, hey, send me your PayPal, cash at me, and I will run you your shirt. Like, we had a whole spreadsheet type of business. Like, it was that. And I was like, oh, they called my homegirl, like, listen, I'm gonna drop these t-shirts off to you. I need you to print them up. People want them, right? And we were like, oh, they want these. Okay. So we made it. I started literally with 3 t-shirts: Black Diabetic Girl, Make Insulin Cheap Again, and Diabetic Girls Do It Better. And here we are today.
Like, first of all, I think that's a few things. Like, number one, I love the title, like, where Black Diabetic Girl as a title, like, same with diabetics doing things. It was just like, I didn't know if I would change it. I thought it sounded okay at first. And here we are 7 years later, like, and also just like listening to and having the right people in your life to build you up and to say, hey, I think you have something here. I think you should do this. Like, people are going to want this. Like, having friends like that is such I don't know about rare, but it's such an important thing for somebody's life in somebody's life. And like, these people don't have diabetes, right? They're just someone recognizing what you're doing and supporting you there. I think of some of my friends too, like the first few years of this, just like random emails, texts. One of my good friends bought me an Amazon gift card to buy a podcast mic, like little things like that make such a huge difference.
It really does. It definitely does. Like she literally would go into my Instagram page and she's like, listen, this is what we need to do. You need to do X, Y, Z. Like she literally found like a person to design everything. Like I did nothing in the beginning because I was so like, nah, girl, I don't have no time for this. Like, no. And like we argued, I wanted outside of that pre-sale, I wanted Diabetic Girls Do It Better to be the first shirt that I sold. And she was like, are you crazy? And I was like, I don't want to offend anybody. And I was like, oh, and if somebody says I'm crazy, I'm be like, who are you talking to? Like we literally went back and forth about it probably for like 45 to an hour. Like we were going head to head. Like I'm not putting Black Diabetic Girl out there first. Like, nah.
I love that you're bringing up that portion because there is a bit of me that asks, like, what was it about the word Black that made you think would offend someone?
So while I do say whatever I want to say out my mouth, right? I also have friends that are not Black people, right? At the time, one of my really good friends was a white girl. And I was like, yo, I don't want to offend this. Like, oh, and then I was like, I don't want to offend anybody, right? Because again, for me, and this is so crazy that this was my thought process, but this was the thought process. It was because if somebody says something crazy to me, they're not going to be ready for the wrath that responds. So let's keep it very, this is what you get. And she was like, why do we care? Girl, they can try you if they want to. Like, we don't care. Put this out. And I was like, oh, sorry, Siri.
You like, screaming. Siri got scared. You don't scare Siri.
Why she gotta talk when I need her to talk? So I was like, oh, but I always tell her, yo, you were right. I always tell people it wouldn't be none of what it is today without those two women pushing me outside of my box and knowing like, you worried about the wrong things, Miss Ma'am. Like, that's not.
So while we're talking about the Black Diabetic Girl and the logo and the shirt and all that, I know that there was a response where some people wanted the white Diabetic Girl shirts. So did they get the smoke? Or did you make the shirts? I actually don't know. I don't think I was in the community then.
There is not a white Diabetic Girl shirt. Kylene, Dyana, Redmond will never make a white diabetic shirt. My response to that was very much, you can go and buy this Diabetic Girls Do It Better t-shirt. Like, yo, there you go. Some people wanted the smoke and they did get the smoke because at that time I wasn't as known as I am now. So I didn't really, it was like, oh yeah, like, oh, I'm gonna run you all the smoke. So some of them that tried me in my DM, I was like, but why do you need this? Explain to me why you need this. Like, why do you need people to know that you're a white diabetic girl? Once I explained to them and some other women, were like, listen, are you crazy? This is why we did XYZ. The majority of them were, I apologize. Okay, I understand. Like, I get it. There were a few that tried my hand and I was like, baby, this is not what you want. I promise you, I'm not some of the other people that because at this time I'm seeing it, right? Because I'm not a part of it. I'm like, baby, this is not what you want over here. Like, I know that y'all talk trash to some of these other people and they don't say too much. Oh, I'm not her, girl. Like, I was, at that time I was like, honey, I'm like, honey, this is not the smoke that you want. And, they were very much like talking it. And I was like, where you live at? Because we catch flights. Like, where you live? Because we'll come in.
Run me that address. Run me that address.
They didn't know you're from the DMV. They don't know.
Nah, they did. I was like, no, like they are really trying me hard. But in my DM trying me. And I was like, oh, this is not what you want. Like, homegirl, I can catch a flight to you. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna mind my business. Like, block. I learned about the block button. And so I blocked. But after that, I don't know if she maybe told her friends that, oh, she talked back. because I have yet to be tried again like that. And I would like to keep it like that because I'm a very peaceful person.
And I think that there are some people who just need to learn some lessons. And there's some people that, probably benefited a lot from some of the smoke that you put in those DMs. And hopefully, they've learned their lesson and they're living their life.
I'm afraid. I'm afraid that because we're all human. Like, I don't know why you think that you can come to me and talk to me any kind of way that I'm 80% sure you're not gonna do it if we saw each other in person.
Sure.
Like don't do that keyboard bullying crap with me. Like, I'm not a fan of it. I told you why. If you would like to make one, hey, do you make one? But I'm not doing it. Why am I making a white diabetic girl shirt?
Well, I think it's so. Sorry, Rob, to cut you off.
Well, I was gonna loop you in too because I know you as a runner of the smoke as well. You do not come for Eritrea in the DMs. She will let you know.
She will give you the smoke.
And
I also like to run it like publicly. So
yeah, that's true.
That's my thing.
Just be careful. And I wanted to know like how you two got to know each other in the community. And Eritrea, you mentioned that you were a little bit later to join in the community. Do you remember when you discovered Black Diabetic Girl and Kylene?
Okay, so first of all, you read my mind, but secondarily, I wanted to say that. So because I think it's so interesting that Kylene has this. Or right now when we're talking about like this experience, it's very like, don't mess with Kylene, when she's, in my opinion, one of the nicest people I've ever met in the diabetic online community. Like
100%.
As a person who is of color, but had a really hard time identifying as a Black woman, I've always felt like really shunned by that community or sometimes not accepted. And when I first joined like the diabetic online community and I found Kylene's account, she was the first person I ever talked to from the diabetic online community. And I remember that she was like, yeah, you were very like, because I remember I went through our DMs before this conversation. I went back to our very first DM and I sent you a DM and I was like, hey, thank you so much for connecting with me. I've been looking for other Black girls to talk to. And you said, hey, sis, it's so good to connect with you. Let me follow you back. Anything you need, let me know. And you were just immediately someone for me to talk to that maybe, because obviously we're different skin tones, we're different body types, all that, but I still felt a connection there. And then I remember when there was all this stuff happening with like Black Lives Matters and I was trying to raise money and do these things. And I reached out to Kylene and Kylene was like, let me add you to the Black people of color group me. Like, let me add you to our community. Let me bring you in. Like, there was just so much love there for me, a stranger. And I had never felt that accepted before. So it was just, I don't know. I just feel so grateful. And also Kylene knows, and I just kind of told Rob, but I wouldn't work at Diabetics doing things if Kylene wouldn't have co-signed Rob, because as a woman of color, I am in a way afraid of white men. Like, it's just, a predatory thing. I don't know what you want from me. I don't know you, sir. And before I took our meeting, because Rob did ask to have a meeting, I texted Kylene and I was like, what do I do, girl? And I still have the voice note because she was like, he cool, sis. Don't worry. He wears nice shoes. I was like, I am deceased. Like, she was just like, he cool. I promise he ain't like the rest of them. And he wears nice kicks. And I was just
like, listen, a lot of people think, because I as a Black woman, right? We already have a different guard up, right? And so because I am very outspoken, I'm loud, and I'm loud because I'm tone deaf, right? So fun fact that a lot of people don't know about me. And so I talk loud so I can hear myself, right? And so, people automatically assume, oh, she's aggressive, she's mean. And I'm like, yo, I cry at the drop of a dime. Like, I am a baby for real. But, then the Capricorn will come out. But no, I was like, for me, I've never been that person that's like, oh, we got to write white people off. Like some people are like, nope. But I'm like, nah, I had gotten to know you, not as much as how I know you now. But, I was like, nah, he cool. Like, I've seen him stand behind what he says, and he says what he means, and he stands by it. He's not like some of the other people in our community that are like, I got your back, but then they quiet. I was like, no. Talk to him. Like, don't base your opinion off of what other people are saying. I was like, girl, you better do it. You better do it. And look,
glad I did.
Well, thank you. Yeah, for real. Like, that you bring up a good point though. Like we really didn't know each other that well then. I think it was mostly just like accounts in the community, and you hadn't been on the podcast and we hadn't really talked face to face or in a one-on-one scenario. So I'm glad that that's the message that I put off. And I think, I hope that we continue to do that. And I think you're right. Like, to me, it's not about like, I don't know. I just believe that we grow together, and it's not like it's not a competition. I think I look at the diabetes community as a space, especially, when I first started, and definitely at that time, when we had Eritrea join the team, as like, we build stronger together. And there's no reason why we all can't eat. We all can't, be part of this. And I think a big part of that too, coming out of that, like hiring Eritrea at that point was, trying to do things a little bit differently. And, I am a one-man operation, and I am a white man, and I have had immense levels of privilege all throughout my life, starting with just the people who I was lucky enough to be born to. My parents just, they're just A1 since day one. And I think that we need to have, more people here that are different and that make it accessible. And I know that there are people connected to diabetics doing things now that would not be here if not for Eritrea, and as a result, if not for Kylene's endorsement. So
that's so sweet, Rob.
Gotta respect. You know what I mean? Like, I stand on the shoulders of giants. I've said this before, and this is, without you guys, this is just another white dude with a podcast.
I mean,
my thing was, it is nothing to hold a conversation with somebody, right? Like, it's nothing to hold a conversation with the person, and you move from that. Hold your conversation, and I always if my gut don't feel right, then it's a no. Like, conversations don't hurt.
Yeah.
You don't lose nothing from a conversation. So, I was like, girl, talk to the man. See what he got to say. And it ain't what you want, then leave.
And I prepped for that conversation too. I was like very buttoned up. I was very honored.
Okay. Anyway, so Kylene, you're such a big opinion leader in the community. Like, I feel like you're constantly you're just so on the nose. Like,
we call that leadership. We call that leadership.
Yeah. A key opinion leader, as I'm learning, is the phrase. But like, you recently had a tweet go viral, or what me and Rob like to call diabetes viral. And the tweet said, I want to talk about what a diabetes influencer means and why it has such a negative vibe.
Oh yeah. The people were not happy.
Well,
they were going crazy.
There was a lot. Like, I remember, so I saw that post, and because I like all your posts, they pop into my feed early. So like, at that point, it only had a couple likes. You'd only posted it a few minutes ago. So I saved it. Because I was like, if I come back to it, I want to see what people say. And I had no idea it was going to go as wild as it did.
I did not think that it was going to move like it moved. Like, I had to hide the post because people were coming back. It was just too much. Like, it got too far. And anytime I post something that's like controversial, or I feel like somebody's gonna say something, I put my little disclaimer like, yo, don't come here disrespecting, because my block game is real, and all my friends will eat you alive, right? And they were really like going in it. Like, people were in my DMs, like angry, like some diabetic people were angry. And I'm like, what you mad for? Like, what you really mad for? Tell me why you mad. Why you mad? Because if I told you that I was like a Starbucks influencer, you would like me. If I told you that like I was a Subway influencer, you would like me. You would not be mad at me. If I was an influencer for skincare, you would not care, right? But because people want to say, oh, well, they're a diabetic influencer, now all of a sudden I'm a bad person. Let's talk. I was like, let's talk about it. And my friends were like, really? Why?
It's such a nuanced conversation, though. And I think with the people who are on this call, specifically you guys, because I am small fry.
Lagging, but
y'all are like, as far as influencers goes, like, is there merit to the conversation that because it's technically a chronic illness influencing, that we have a larger responsibility?
Oh, that's a good question. Here's my take on it, right? The word influences mean that I influence you in some shape, form, or way. Good, bad, whatever, right? while I might not be influencing you on how to take care of yourself, because I am not a doctor, right? However, I've used whatever product and you want to know about it. So you want me to tell you about it because you in my DMs asking me if I use X, Y, and Z. Like, so I feel like people, okay, so here's my issue with it, right? They think we all lie about everything that we use, do, whatever, right? So they automatically turn off with, oh, they just paying you to whatever, but all of us don't get paid. I need people to understand that. They are constantly yelling, I just want to send you a product. Can you post about it? Like, I don't make no money. Like, I don't make big money from talking about whatever product I'm posting about. And I think that that's where people have that misconception of, we getting paid, not this one over here. I'm not one that's getting paid from it, right? But you also are asking us questions about it. Like, you're really like, so does Premier Protein make your blood pressure? No, your blood pressure, Lord, your blood sugar rise? No, I use it as this. Okay, well, oh, I see you're using the Dexcom here. How does that work? Oh, do you like the favorite one that I get all the time now is, do you use exercise mode with Tandem? And I'm like, I don't, but now it makes me think, okay, well, let me try it. Right. But people don't like, it's time. Like, so why
there's an exercise mode?
Girl.
See,
so
look at this.
It's an exercise mode on that pump. Here's my problem. Tandem, I hope y'all listening because I have suggestions.
Oh my God, stop.
Because I need a timer. I always forget to turn it off. So you turn on exercise mode, but you going about your business and, well, I'm waking up the next day still in exercise mode. Yep, exactly.
But I've just been influenced, so I wrote it down.
See, so like I do want to touch on that because you become a functional expert, a key opinion leader, right? You're using a product and people look at you, and like you said, you're not a doctor. I think I also have been unknowingly to me. I just thought it was very important that I never give medical advice, just because I really do believe having a relationship with your endocrinologist and your care team is ultra important. So I want to go back to like what you said about some people thinking that sponsored content is just lying, or like that you would never say what you really think if you're being paid to do it. Because I had this really interesting conversation in the comments on YouTube. Somebody commented on a thing on a video and said, "Hey, I wish you would have disclosed that this was a sponsored video earlier in the video, because then I would have moved on." And I said, and I had time, and I was
time.
I was a little bit upset, and then I was like, okay, deep breath. Like, let's just see what this person means. Cause I was like, you always think, I think I have the, we work really hard at this stuff and we spend time and give of ourselves. And, sometimes don't make money and sometimes do, but I'm telling you right now, diabetes money has not changed my life. And I would say probably one of the top earners, which is just, it goes to show where we're at. But, so anyway, this person said, I wish you would have disclosed this earlier. And I asked, okay, well, what did you take issue with? And like, what did you think of the video? And he's like, honestly, I thought the video was good, that you were good on camera and that you had like good explanations, but I don't trust sponsored content because I know that this brand is never going to pay you to say something that's maybe not as good, or highlight a feature of a product that's not very good, or your experience with it. And I was like, I hear that. That's not necessarily how I think. And it made me think like, okay, well, people still have a lot of mistrust around, products. And that I think is, I didn't do that. And I have no control over that. And so he's like, yeah, your video was fine. I went to go find a video of somebody who was willing to tell me more of the cons of this product so I could make a decision. And I was like, okay, cool, fair. I went from being like really upset at this person to seeing their perspective of it and being like, okay, maybe that's something I can do better. Cause that's also what I want to do. Like, okay, if there are people that think that way, I need to make a video maybe that could help them and reach them where they are. And kind of back to the overall, like the influencer conversation is, I think the reason that people get upset about healthcare influencers or insurance companies or diabetes companies or pharma or whatever the case is because of all of the inequality that exists in the world around those systems.
Yeah.
And that is 100% fair. I think where it does get a little dicey is that people think that when you sign, we're going to talk about you being on a Dexcom ad because I saw you in my endo's office, and how cool is that?
Me too.
I am not up in my own endo's office, nor does he care. I was so excited to tell him I was in a commercial, and he was like, okay, right. That's great. So
your A1C is this.
Right. He was like, so send me the data. And I'm like, but you want me to send it to you since y'all don't have it? And he's like, that's nice. That's great. However, I like move on. And I was like, dang.
Wow. Your endo.
He was like, listen, we're going to get to the business. He did not care. He was like, listen.
Stop trying to distract me, Kylene.
I was like, yo, like, sir, I'm excited. You excited? No? Okay, fine.
And I was excited. Like somebody that I know, somebody that I'm familiar with,
right.
is on, that could have just been anybody, but now it's somebody that I know.
It's nice to see a type 1, and we'll talk about more Dexcom later, I guess, and I can save it till then if you want to fix it, Rob. But it's nice to see a Black woman wearing a CGM where the person is type 1. Like, I think that we are just so tired of being typecasted or stereotyped into only being type 2, and that certain bodies have to be type 2. And that, if you got a little bit more weight on you, there's no way you're type 1. So I was so happy when I saw you in my endo's office, and I was like, yes, this is my girl. My endo thought I was losing my mind, but
so
yeah.
Tiara was she had on a Black Diabetic Girl sweatshirt, and she was like, no, that's my friend, like, that's my homegirl right there. And her endo was like, you know her? And she's like, yes. For me, right, I was like, yo, people should be excited to know that it's not paid actors in this. Like, we are real people that people know. Like, that was for me the exciting part when I saw everybody else that was there. Regardless of the type that they were, I was just excited to know that y'all really use people that have the disease. I was excited for that because it's easy for you to go and hire actors and actresses and move along, but they get, like, okay, great. But to see people that we know, oh yeah, I was excited.
And, to come back to the point though, like they didn't sign you up for that and then make you sign a contract that said you'll never speak ill of Dexcom, you'll never criticize pharma, and you'll never criticize the insurance industry, and you'll never criticize the healthcare industry. That doesn't happen, and at least it has not been my experience. And so
mine either. It was not mine. Like they actually like to hear, like, I tagged them, right? I went off because, you can no longer get things directly from Dexcom. It's through whatever your supplier is. And mine was Edge Park. And
they suck. I'm sorry. If you're an Edge Park person listening to this, I want to fight you in the street. I hate you.
Hey, hands down, I'm with you. We're going to stand neck and neck, sis. Like, we're going to pull up.
We ride at dawn.
I literally put a story up and I was like, yo, like, I tagged everybody. Dexcom, Edge Park. Like, this is ridiculous. This is trash. And Dexcom immediately was in my DMs like, can we get your number to whoever because we want to know more about this? I went on a rant on the phone. I felt so bad for that lady because I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I calm patients down because of people like the Edge Park thing. Like, I was like, no, this is trash. No. And then I was like, I'm so sorry. Oh, it's not really your fault. But like, they want that. Like, when I hold conversations with them, they're like, so, you have issues? Yeah, I do. My Dexcom got stuck and it will come off. Like, I don't not post that stuff. I post about it and I tag them. I'm like, good, bad. Like, you need to know how you gonna fix it if we don't tell you about it, right?
Air them out.
Well, and I think that's so important to hear from people like you as well. So the person in the ad is also holding them accountable on the phone, is like using the products. I feel that same way with Medtronic. Like, the other day I had a weird pump notification and something I had never seen before. I called customer service and I shared the story about it, not because it was sponsored, but because, like, hey, I'm a patient too. And, I also don't get special treatment. Like, somebody asked me, he's like, hey, did the lady on the phone know who you were? And I was like, no. But she knew that she had my patient profile, and she knew, she walked me through like making sure everything was disconnected and safe, and we tested it, and then we got through. And, it made me also remember, the things about, like you mentioned earlier, like skincare or, or protein or whatever the case may be. Those aren't things that decide life or death for most people,
Yep.
and, in a lot of ways, the reason that healthcare is so tightly regulated is because it's very dangerous, and and everyone is different. And diabetes is a disease with so many inputs. Like even the smallest little change can be a really, really big disaster. But, I guess the thing that I like, as we kind of close the book on this influencer conversation, like the more I live, the more I know that what people with diabetes need is just what people in America need, which is more access to healthcare, more money, and more, information, critical information. I think especially, in the Black community, I've seen a lot of posts from some of the big companies this week about, Black patients are less likely to hear about pumps and less likely to hear about CGMs. So something as simple as including you in an ad, and seeing a Black woman with type 1 wearing a CGM could be the difference between somebody getting a CGM and somebody not getting one. And that's so important.
Right. That's true. And it is like, if we're quiet, then these people won't know us. For me, I'm a bigger picture person, right? Like I remember my why. I know why I started. And so it was because we needed like I needed friends, representation. So if me being a quote unquote influencer, because we don't name ourselves that. Like y'all name, not y'all, but y'all named us influencers. I didn't roll over and say, I'm an influencer. Like you all named me an influencer. So my voice means something, and we're going to talk to everybody because we know that we don't see equal representation. So while y'all mad, we still, hey, you don't have to like the post, keep it moving. You don't have to like me. I'm going to always be honest. If I don't like it, I don't like it. I worked with a company and I was like, this is y'all, this is not for us. And I told them, I walked away from a good amount of money. I was like, yeah, y'all, no, I don't know who y'all tested this stuff on or how, but y'all need to go back to the drawing board. Like, thanks, but no thanks. I don't want no parts of it. And they respected it and we kept on moving, So we all aren't bad. We all don't just take money. Like I could have taken that change and kept it moving, but I did not.
Yeah. And I think, again, going back to the why, what's interesting, as I was preparing for this conversation, the reason that you started your platform is very similar to the reason that I did, is I just didn't see myself in the people that were representing diabetes. And, fortunately that's changed. And I don't think, I think that's largely in part of a lot of just social media adoption and hashtags and, give a little bit of credit to like Beyond Type 1, as well as we're kind of starting up this diabetes online kind of Instagram and world and kind of uniting that at the time. But now you see people who a lot more kinds of people who are influencers or who are, voices in the community. And I think that's really important. One day I'm going to throw my phone into the ravine and I'm going to, shut the gate on my farm or something, wherever I'm at in the world. And hopefully at that point, there will be more people to carry the torch on. It's been interesting. It's interesting to say like how things change from day 1 to day 100 to day 1,000 as well. So with that in mind, I'd love to just kind of talk some like quick fire questions for you.
Do it.
I'm excited. I haven't heard these.
What? Yeah, I keep a little trick up my sleeve every now and then. So what's something unexpected that you have found or has happened to you from sharing your story? Like what's something that came to you that you didn't expect?
Oh, so many people to say, oh, that's my story too. I really wasn't I didn't expect, most of the time you feel like your story that's it, right? And so I was like, oh, that didn't happen to other people. But when anytime someone would hear my story and I get all of that happened to me, like that's my copycat, copy paste, like that is it. And I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm not surprised anymore.
Yeah.
The more that we talk to people, but definitely like in the beginning, I was like, oh, Okay, I'm not alone.
You know what's funny? I remember this from like maybe a year ago. It might have been longer time. What is time these days? But like we were having a conversation, and you were in the comments, I think too, and it might have been with Mila Clark Buckley or Mila Clark now. We were talking about Halle Berry, and we were like, I guarantee you she was diagnosed type 2 because there was a lot of conversations about her being type 2 for years, and now all of a sudden she's LADA, and I just was like, man, if Halle Berry is getting misdiagnosed, like what hope is there for the rest of us? Like, like this is such a common thing.
It's crazy. It's definitely crazy.
Don't talk about Halle. We don't like her.
Halle, come on the pod. Halle, come on the pod.
She won't talk about diabetes. I'm sorry to like even like distract the conversation, but she like won't, I don't know. There's so many rumors about her that she won't eat and she just like believes in exercise and won't take insulin. So it's just like disappointment.
I kind of blame some of that to like culture too, right? Because you have to look at her age, right? Look at how old she is. And we all know that Black culture is very much like, especially back in the day, we don't talk about it. We very much, listen, they said you need to exercise or take your cinnamon or do X, Y, Z, you know what I mean? Like, so, and then we also, like, I stand by, like, I don't have to talk about it if I don't want to.
That's fair. I guess that's fair. That's valid.
I don't have to talk about it if I don't want to.
Let's talk about that, because I think it is, I call it a vulnerability exchange, because like it takes courage and work to say, hey, this is my story, here you go. And sometimes, like, especially in the beginning, like not that much comes back, but people start to share, and there's that exchange. But like you're making very private parts of your life very public.
Yeah.
What has, I don't know, would you do anything differently? Would you share more early? Would you share less? Or are there things that you've shared that you feel like maybe you, in hindsight, you might not have, been as prepared to share?
No, and I don't think that I would change anything. Maybe like talking earlier, but everything happens when it's supposed to happen. Yeah. I don't think that I would change anything because I know the impact that it has had even on one person. I know the impact of me using my voice, me telling my story, me taking an Instagram name and turning it into a t-shirt, right? Like I know the parts that has played. Like I get the messages from moms that are like, I am so glad my daughter has someone that they can see, from the grown women that are like, I'm so glad that you talk about being diagnosed as an adult, because they don't care about us as an adult. Like they focus on children. So I'm glad that you're talking about work life and diabetes. So we gonna keep everything the same.
I love that.
Yeah.
What would you give, like, kind of like the final sort of quick fire question? And the way I worded it, I think is fun too. It's like, what advice would you give to current and future Black diabetic girls? Because like, as you know, like the Black guy, you might not be a Black diabetic girl today, but tomorrow that could totally change. And for people who are diagnosed today, they're going to look for other Black diabetic girls and they're going to find you. What advice do you have for current and future Black diabetic girls?
Okay, so for current ones, right? I think that I would say it's not one size fits all, sis. It's not one size fits all. And you have to do what's right for you. You can take the advice, but that's exactly what it is, advice. You figure it out. You can ask your questions and you work with your people and get it moving, right? I also would tell them, you don't have to tell a soul about your story. Do not feel obligated. Do not, you move how you choose to move. If you want to be loud and proud, baby, be loud and proud. If you want to be proud and quiet, be proud and quiet. For the women or young girls who will be diagnosed tomorrow and thereafter, baby, we welcome you with open arms, right? Like it's a different sisterhood, it's a different place where we got you. If you want to be got, we got you. We will help you. We will give you what we want to give you. We will give you what you need. If you don't need nothing, we got you. We won't give you nothing. If you need something, we're going to give it to you. It's not the end of the world. And you know, as I am with everything, right? Like, you got this.
What difference do you think that would have made for you on day one if somebody would have told you that? If
somebody would have told me, girl, you better ask questions. Don't you just let these people tell you, oh, you diabetic because of, that would have changed life. Like, I would not, you know, have pancreatitis. I would be able to enjoy life how I want to enjoy it without having to worry about flare-ups. But yeah, I wish somebody just would have been like, nah, ask some more questions. You know, hey, girl, don't you settle for that. Like,
yeah, but see, that's why you're making a difference. And, you know, sometimes like that sacrifice, it's hard to be a trailblazer. And I think a lot of that in the diabetes community, even around the influencer conversation, is like, we're sort of just learning as we go. And you know, that's part of that journey too. And like you said, you know, it's unfortunate that it happened sort of the way it did, but that led you to be able to help other people avoid that going down the road. So, you know, it's just you know, people ask me early on, like, hey, you've like got all this like cool stuff going on. Like, would you give diabetes back if you could? And I was like, heck yeah, do that. Like, sign me up. I'll sign it up. I'll turn it all away tomorrow.
Where's my refund?
Give me that refund. But you know, because we are here and because you know, we're going down this journey and other people can benefit from it, I think we're leaving the world a better place than we found it. And that's what's super important.
And also, we met people, like, some of my very best friends are because I am diabetic. So if I never had diabetes, right, I would not have the friends that I have, you know? So it's like, I don't want it because it's expensive and it's draining and it's tiring. But then the plus side to it is I have the Tiaras and the Amelias and you know, all of you, all of everybody else, like, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, dang.
I mean, all I got is Eritrea, you know, so I mean, it's like, you know, I got.
Oh, please.
I am not your only diabetic friend. That is not true.
Please. Like, we know he has friends.
Don't let him play you.
I got multiple group chats.
Yeah. Listen, that's where all the fun takes place, in the group chats, right? You know.
I love our group me. If you're not in our group me and you're a Black person, let me and Kylene know, because you need to be in there. But
don't let me know, because I keep the group me's on mute. So I pop in and pop back out. Y'all holler at my homegirl so she can put y'all in there. Because I have too many group me chats, so everything is muted. Group me is muted.
It's just a good space for people who are of color who are joining the diabetic online community. So if you are a person of color, if you are a Black person and you'd like some more community, definitely DM me. You can DM Kylene. She'll just send it to me and I'll be happy to add you.
Well, and you know, with that involved, I want to close with this. In National Diabetes Awareness Month last year, Kylene, you put together a large kind of panel, so to speak, of people from the community, from really all over. And we had like a 2-hour Zoom conversation about important topics in the community. And we were talking about stigma. We talked about nonprofits. We talked about brands. We talked about, you know, what people really need. And it was just like an open forum. And lots of folks who are friends of the podcast and who are friends of the community were there. I wanted to like ask you, you know, what you took away from that, and you know, also, you know, how you, because you had some heavy hitters in there, people that are tough to book, and you know, even me, Eritrea knows my calendar is a mess, and I made sure that on that Saturday at 2 p.m. I was in my chair ready for that conversation. So you carry a big stick, but you know, what did you walk away from that conversation with?
So for me, I walked away from my friends say that I don't give myself enough credit, right? And I'm not a person that talks about myself. So I walked away from that knowing the people that I had in that room and the influence that they have in our community, that it was on a Saturday, it was in the afternoon, it was not paid. And these people all showed up because I asked them to. So I walked away. One of the things that I walked away with, I say that to say, like, I walked away from like, okay, girl, you got to stop downgrading yourself. It's like, stop downplaying yourself, because people show up because you asked them to, right? The second thing I walked away from it, the other thing that I walked away from that conversation was, man, there's so much work to do in this community on various levels. Like, I know the top ones: affordability, accessibility, education, right? I can't change that, not by myself. However, representation, inclusion, the things that my voice can make an impact on, that's where I have to start. And so it literally was, okay, y'all, like, yeah, we got some work to do. Like, we got work to do, and either we gonna do the work or we not gonna do the work. It just reminded me of like my whys, honestly. Like, this is why you here. Like, this is because we need to see more people. We need people to stop shaming people. You know, we need to talk to each other. Like, it's okay to talk to people with type 2. It's okay to talk to people with a lot of, like, you don't have to downplay their story or their illness. Like,
Well, for me, it made me think, like, I'm doing the right stuff. I'm in the right place, because if those conversations were happening a few years ago, or even before I was involved in the community, I wasn't aware of them. And I felt very grateful to be a part of that group and you're right. Like, I came away with it too. Like, there's so much stuff to do. It's easy to get overwhelmed if you try to attack all of it at once.
sure,
and so, I came away as well, like, really focused on how can we hit one or two really good points and do it well. And then we'll go into some of these other ones. In that room specifically, man, I don't know if I'd ever been in a Zoom with like 15 Black people with diabetes discussing diabetes community topics. Like, that just didn't exist. And that was just a special thing to be a part of. Just discussing like the real world and like the realities of people with diabetes and what we live with and what we go through every day. So I wanted to, give you props as well. And thank you for making me a part of that.
And I can't even take all that credit by myself, right? Like, Tierra and Amelia, when you talk about your group chat, I know I drive them crazy. Like, I'll text them 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, like, yo, I want to do this. What do y'all think? Let's do this, or let's put this on, or let's do that. Like, we literally had like 2 or 3 conversations prior to that with just a list of names of people we really wanted in this room who we know are adults and can hold conversations, because that was our first priority. We want adults, people who can literally hold a conversation, like open-minded conversations. You're not in here, we don't do no drama, right? So we went down, that was our list. Then it was, we don't want it to be all Black people. We don't want it to be all type 1s. Like, we literally were going like down, like, okay, yes, okay, not this conversation. Yes, no, yes. Like, we were running it down because we knew we had a previous conversation, like, when we had our podcast, where we talked to it was all women, but we just had that conversation of type 1s and type 2s. And the information that we took away from that one, we knew how powerful this one could be. So it was everything for us to make sure we had the right people in the conversation. So shout out to my girls, because I know I drive them crazy.
Shout out to the Dope Diabetic Girls.
Yeah, I drive them crazy. Love y'all. It's real with them.
Well, Kylene, thank you for keeping it real with us today as well, and for being a supporter of what we do at Diabetics Doing Things, and for your contributions to More Than a Diabetic as well. Just appreciate you and all that you bring to the community and to the table. For those listening, blackdiabeticgirl.com, Black Diabetic Girl on Instagram, Dope Diabetic Girls podcast. Kylene is out there. She might be in your endo's office on a Dexcom ad. If so, be sure to shout her out. So thank you so much for joining us today and for having the conversation.
No, thank you guys for having me. I love y'all. I am a fan of the podcast. So yes, thank y'all.